if you believe in a God, which one would it be? Cafe affogato, black coffee, vanilla ice cream, perfection. Anyway, I'm not going to do my usual intro today. I don't know. I don't feel like it. Try a little bit different. Who cares? So, today I was struggling a little bit which video to do, and I settled on reviewing Neil Gaiman's American Gods. Why? I don't know. I had a few things going on there, debating whether this book fits in the feel of the channel. Is it fantasy? Is it not? And yeah, I thought, well, I'll do this. It's actually what I felt like. Of all the ideas, I jotted down my list of things to review. This is the one that sprang up at me from the page. This is the book I want to talk about. So, if you are subscribing to the channel, if you're into fantasy, I'd be surprised if you haven't heard from Neil Gaiman's American Gods or haven't seen the TV show. But it is an urban fantasy. All the action takes place in the real world, in the US, with our main human lead character and real life locations. And around that, Neil Gaiman constructs, builds, permeates the story with ancient gods and mythologies from all over the world. Now, that is fantasy. Is perhaps, I think some people call it low fantasy. But I'm wondering, I'm thinking whether sometimes isn't that a more complicated, more challenging task than creating a whole brand new world from scratch? I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe when you create a fantasy world, a high fantasy setting, you're free to do whatever you want. And when you're working in the confines of the real physical world, it is a little bit more complicated to fit everything in there and not make it look way too strange or out of place or anything like that. I don't know. Maybe it's a thought. Maybe it is indeed a bit more challenging, perhaps. Let me know what you think. So, this story follows our main character called Shadow. Not a big fan of the name, to be honest. I think a bit pretentious, perhaps. Who is enlisted by some mysterious man named Wednesday for a reason, but again, feels a little bit silly. And they effectively go on a road trip of the US. Because the idea behind the book, the essence of the book, is that notion that America has got the geography and Europe has got the history. Now, to my fellow American friends out there, perhaps this may sound pretentious, but when you stop to think about it, my hometown in Spain has existed since, I don't know, the year 500 or so, and you know that was a good 1,000 years before the much maligned figure of Columbus arrived to the US. So we went through Phoenician, Roman, Arabic invasions and wars, and the US, the Native Americans were just there doing their thing. So the history is there, and the idea of the book is that when the Europeans and people from other parts of the world migrated to the US, they took with them their beliefs of their ancient gods, and they take on avatars, human representations. So we are introduced to a vast array of ancient European, Slavic, Asian mythologies who are present in modern day US. Modern day, I mean, the book was published about 20 years ago, but you get the idea. So we see African gods that went along with the slaves. on the slave ships. We see genies or genes from the Arab Gulf moving to the US. All the Slavic gods from Russia and the other Scandinavian gods have got representations in the US. All folk Celtic myths are also represented with leprechauns and stuff like that. And these ancient gods have lost their power as people have lost faith in them, as less people believe in them, and they have been replaced by these new gods that we have created for ourselves in society: the god of television, the god of technology, and things of the sort. And effectively, we are heading into some final battle, some final confrontation between the modern gods and the old gods. So the book won every single possible award you can think of. So I'm just reading at the cover here. We won the Hugo, the Nebula, the Bram Stoker, the SFX, and the Locus Awards. And I think the creativity displayed by Neil Gaiman there is fantastic. I think his imagination, his ability to blend into the real world other nether region fantasies, mythologies, and creations is second to none. But when I stopped to think about the book and remember when I read it and how I felt about it, I thoroughly enjoyed the book. I thoroughly enjoyed the idea, for sure. That goes without, doesn't go without saying. I have to say it. Really enjoyed it. I would recommend American Gods to a lot of people because I think the idea. At the time I thought it was incredibly original, of this notion that all these gods lived and fought with each other, and they took on normal people jobs. So one of them is a taxi driver in New York. Another one is a prostitute. Another one is works in an abattoir. So I thought that was very creative, for want of a better word. However, the bit where, if I stop to think about it, I start finding flaws in the book, and you can let me know whether these are valid. I don't want to say criticism, but whether these are valid points of concern or not. Is that the main idea, that the main point is that gods gather their strength from people's belief in them. So if enough people believe in a certain god, that god comes into. So people will gods into existence. That's why they've willed the god of technology, the god of television into existence, with people believing in that.
I don't believe in the god's existence. Man is the master of his own fate, not the god's. The gods are man's creation to give answers that they are too afraid to give themselves.
But that idea actually is Terry Pratchett's, which he covered in one of his Discworld books, Small Gods, which was published in 1992, so a good 8-9 years before American Gods. Now, I'm not going to say that Neil Gaiman plagiarized Terry Pratchett's concept, because they were good friends, and in 1990, I think it was, they wrote Good Omens together, and that idea is really reflected in Good Omens. So maybe Terry Pratchett took the idea of Good Omens and developed it further in Small Gods first, and then Neil Gaiman took a lot longer to do so with Americans. So perhaps just a collaboration between two friends, two authors that highly respected each other. But if you have read Pratchett beforehand, you may find that idea not as original as other people who encounter American Gods for the first time. The other point of contention, and this occurred to me again as I was thinking about the book, is that we are treated, like I said, to a whole array of gods from all sorts of mythologies all over the world. Except for, there's no Jesus Christ, there's no Allah. I suppose Buddha, maybe, but like the main religions of the present day don't have a manifestation in the book. And surely, if gods are willed into existence by people's beliefs, surely Jesus Christ would have been, surely Jesus Christ or the Christian God or the Jewish version of God that we are more familiar with in Western culture would have been present in the book, and more certainly the version of God more prevalent in Arabic culture should have been present in the book, and they were notable for their absence. A slight dig at organized religion in the present day in its current shape. I don't know. Perhaps. But it's just over 600 pages long. It doesn't drag. You get sucked into the characters, and every so often you're trying to guess who the personified God that we introduce at the different points in time of the book is, and there are some truly shocking moments. If you're familiar with Neil Gaiman and his opus, you know what I'm talking about. It's not exactly horror, but there's certainly a strong element of the supernatural that is weird. But weird is I think it's a word that doesn't do it justice. It's a creative, dark fantasy without overstepping into the horror realm. In all my reviews, I always go on and prattle on about the ending and whether the ending is satisfying or not. But to me, that's really important. I think possibly for everyone. If you're going to take me on a 600-page ride across the US, I want the ending to be meaningful. I want the ending to say something. Let alone if I'm reading a 3-5 book series. After all that time invested on my part as a reader, I want to walk away with the certainty that it was worth all of that time, and I haven't been strung along to, I don't know, just botched, and here it is, this is what happened. Which I think there was a slight risk of that, because if you are heading into a big final confrontation between the old and the modern gods, that's perhaps where your mind will naturally tend to think that's where the book is heading, and it's not where you get. But it's no problem. It's not a problem. It's okay. It's okay. The ending perhaps is not what you expect, but it's a good ending. I think possibly perhaps American Gods is a book for non-fantasy readers. So your average reader that doesn't read fantasy won't be too put off by this book. I don't want to talk about the TV show adaptation. For me, it's got no impact on the book, and I'm very, very happy that I actually read the book before I got involved with the TV show, which actually I couldn't finish. I just switched off. 600 pages doesn't lend itself to a 10 episode or 2 seasons, or however many seasons episodes it is. It's just too much. That's my opinion. So there you go, American Gods. Perhaps I sound a bit subdued today. I haven't slept very much, only 5 hours. I don't know, kids, work, stuff. Doesn't matter. Yeah, please, as usual, like, subscribe, share, comment. Let me know. Do you feel as strongly as not as strongly, but do you feel similar to how I feel about this book? I mean, just looking at the back cover here, and you've got praise from Peter Straub, Jonathan Carroll, Tim Powers, who I've covered earlier in the channel, Michael Chabon. Michael Chabon. I'm not familiar with his work, but there is a lovely long hour-long interview between him and Neil Gaiman on YouTube. I'll leave the link in the description below because it's really worth watching. So anyway, this is all I've got for today now. Take lots of care, have fun, enjoy yourselves, be good, like, subscribe, spread the word, spread the love, and I'll see you next time. Bye.